Good
Good
morning.
morning.
So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to begin with introductions first, and I would like everyone to introduce themselves to the committee. I'll go ahead and begin. My name is Mr. Ballard, and I work with Terrence in the area of special education in the subject of math.
I'm Ms. Deckard. I work with Terrence in ELA and science.
Good
I
morning.
am
I'm
Miss
Mr.
B. I work with
Matthews.
Terrence with dyslexia.
Good morning. I'm Mr. Matthews. Sorry, I'm having some camera issues. It's not coming on. But I am the fifth grade assistant principal as well as the math assistant principal.
Hi, I'm Ms. Myers. I'm Terrence science teacher.
Good morning. I'm Therese Turner. I'm a licensed specialist in school psychology, or also known as a school psychologist.
And good morning. I am Terrence Mike's mom.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us on today. So this is Terrence's annual ARD, and so his next ARD due date will be November the 29th of 2024, unless you, Miss Mike, decide to call an ARD before then. You do have a right as a parent of a student with a disability to call an ARD when you see fit. And during this ARD, if you have any questions, please let us know, okay?
Yes, sir.
So Terrence continues to qualify for special education services as a student with health impairment, which is ADHD and a specific learning disability. So as I said before, his next ARD is due 11/29/2024, and his FIE, which is a full individual evaluation, is due every 3 years. His is coming up, which is due next month. And so Ms. Turner will be talking to you about that and getting some information about his FIE. Ms. Turner, did you want to do that now or did you want to wait?
No, I'll go ahead and start with the read.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. And Mom, could you go ahead and introduce yourself just so I can make sure I have your last name correct?
Yes, ma'am. It is Leslie Mike. But for some reason, the school continues to have my maiden name in the wrong address. But I continue to say this is not the address on my name, but it's okay. But it's me.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Miss Mike. So the purpose of the READ, which that stands for Review of Existing Evaluation Data. Once a child receives special education services, they've been evaluated for the first time. In order to continue eligibility for services, they have to be reevaluated at least once every 3 years. Now, in the state of Texas, the R committee has an option to conduct this review meeting where, again, we're reviewing the existing data. So I'll be reviewing his initial evaluation data and then the current school data. And using that information, I'll make a recommendation and I'll ask the committee if they agree with my recommendation as to whether or not Terrence needs additional testing in any area in order to continue his eligibility for special education services. One of the reasons that's a good practice is because we've established 3 years ago, like in your child's case, that he meets eligibility as a student with a specific learning disability and dyslexia. And we've established that eligibility, and any new testing that we would do, like I'll talk about the cognitive testing that was done. An individual's cognitive profile, especially at the age where he was tested, it tends to remain pretty stable. And then we use the cognitive information along with the achievement testing to make the connection that there's a learning disability, that there's dyslexia, and we don't anticipate the child's cognitive profile changing. And so we really want to focus on the achievement data that we know about him at the school, because that's actually more meaningful and more valid in terms of the child's functioning, because the achievement testing that we do, it's based on norms, it's based on what kids across the country on average should know for their age and grade level. Whereas again, we want to focus on what Terrence is supposed to know as a Texas, as a student that is enrolled in Texas schools, that has certain, curriculum requirements, where he has the TEKS to follow. And the school data is just more meaningful and more valid in terms of determining what supports he needs to be successful. And that data includes teacher observations, benchmark assessments, how he's done on the STAR test, his grades, again, what teachers observe his skills to be in the classroom. And so it saves your student 6 hours being pulled out of the classroom just to establish that he continues to have a need for services. So I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting if that's okay, Mom. Or the
Yes,
review.
ma'am. Thank you for
Okay.
explaining. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Terrence was evaluated for the first time when he was in second grade at Zenith. An educational diagnostician and a school psychologist did his evaluation because there were concerns with his academic progress. And so the first evaluation area is his language communication skills. There were no concerns 3 years ago with his receptive language, which is like his listening vocabulary. Teacher rated him to be on par, average, which is good in comparison to his same age peers. So being able to comprehend word meanings, understanding class discussions, that was how they rated him to be in the average range. His language vocabulary or expressive language, his speaking vocabulary, that was also rated to be in the average range, which is on par with his same level, grade level, age level peers. And so they noted that he had adequate vocabulary. He used adequate grammar when speaking. He would speak fluently, and he could organize and relate factual information. I am going to pause to ask his current teachers whether or not they see any differences in relation to his receptive and expressive language skills, or do they also believe that it's on par with the average student in his grade level?
Did you want to ask his gen ed teacher?
Yes.
Okay. Ms.
I know. I
Myers,
think we have 3 teachers here, right? Or 2 teachers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we
Ms.
have
Walker and Ms. Myers.
Yes. Ms. Walker, did you want to speak on that first?
I think he's at the same average as his peers when he's paying attention. So when he's paying attention, yes. And when he's not focused, then no.
Okay. And Ms. Myers, do you have any concerns with his speaking, his vocabulary or his general ability to understand classroom discussions?
No, I don't have any concern. He understands, but that he like Miss V said, if he's not focused, that's when you get the I don't understand or what are you talking about or type of situation. Because when he's focused, he's very on target. He can have a conversation with his peers and me. He can clearly state what he's trying to say. And you may just have to word it in a more academic setting, but he has the ability to communicate what he needs to.
Thank you very much. And not a concern that he was a student that needs any speech therapy services because he speaks fluently.
Yes.
So based on the information that was shared, along with the information from the previous evaluation, there does not appear to be a need to do any additional assessment in the area of his language abilities. So I'm going to move on to his physical medical history. When he was evaluated in second grade, he was able to pass the hearing screening, but a referral was sent home to follow up with his vision. Once he was rescreened at school, he did pass he had to follow up with the optometrist. I think he needed new glasses is what the issue was. And then once he received his updated prescription, he was rescreened by the school clinic coordinator, and his vision with the glasses was within normal limits. Miss
May
Mike,
I pause you right there, Miss Turner?
yes.
Miss Mike, is Terrence supposed to wear glasses? Because we never see him wear them.
So what I did was I took him to a different optometrist this year. We got a second opinion because the first one did say he needed glasses, and so I took him to a different one that the PCP referred him to. So I do have a script. So we will be going this weekend to get him some glasses.
Okay, thank you.
So he does still need to wear glasses. And then you're working on getting him an updated prescription.
Yes, ma'am. I do have it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Miss Myers, Miss Walker, if do you observe Terrence needing to get closer to the board? I'm assuming is he nearsighted, Mom?
Yes, ma'am. I
Did you
believe that's what they said. Let me check the notes. I believe so.
but
In my situation, he absolutely needs assisting in seeing all the time.
it seems like he needs to get closer to the board,
He
like wherever
asked
instruction
to
is.
he asked to get closer to the board, or even he brings the papers closer to his face, things of that nature. Yes.
Okay, Mom. It does sound like he's nearsighted. You don't have to verify that. I just was making an observation. So it sounds like in the interim, teachers are aware that he does have a need for glasses, and in the interim, until he gets the glasses, it sounds like y'all are allowing him to get to the board to get closer to instruction if he needs to see whatever's being presented. So
And
I'm
I
just
do
going to
note
note
that
that.
in his math class, he sits close to the board as well.
Okay. And in terms of like just other health history, he did have some significant health histories when he was younger. Like he had a medical problem when he was 3 months old and underwent surgery for that condition. He's broken or fractured his elbow before, but outside of that, he has not been under the care of a physician. This was in second grade due for a chronic or severe medical problem, other than some injuries that he had when he was younger, and again a surgery that he had when he was 3 months old. But no other concerns were noted. There were no concerns reported with his gross motor skills, his ability to walk and run, or his handwriting or ability to manipulate items with his hands. So really, he has been reported to be in good general health outside of the difficulties with focus. Mom, is there any update to his health history with regards to any medical diagnosis since that evaluation?
No, ma'am. That's the only issues that he had was the elbow and the pylorostenosis.
Okay. And that is written in the report, but I was not going to try to pronounce it. um, Now, there were concerns noted, and they're still being discussed with regards to Terrence's ability to focus in the classroom. And when he was in second grade,
You there, Miss Turner? Looks like she froze. Well, until she rejoins us, I can kind of talk about some things while she unfreezes. So I see that Terrence is, he was qualified as a student with an other health impairment, ADHD. Is he currently taking any medication, Miss Mike?
No, sir.
Okay. And so when we talk about an analysis of determinant factors, the R committee has looked at factors that I'm going to go over as in relation to his disability. So we're saying no to a lack of explicit and systematic instruction and phonemic awareness, including oral reading skills and reading comprehension strategies. We said no to that. We said no to lack of appropriate instruction in math because we're saying he is getting appropriate instruction in math. and we're saying no to him being a bilingual student. So we know that Terrence's disability is not due to those things. So we are saying that he was tested and found to have a disability of ADHD, which is also is health impairment. So the committee is agreeing that he is qualifying based on those things. Um, we will, at this time, while Ms. Turner is relogging back in, we're going to let Ms. Myers kind of talk on how Terrence is doing in her class, his strengths and weaknesses, as well as his behavior and how he gets along with his peers. As well as and Miss Myers, do you also have his grade for your class? Can you talk about those things, please?
Okay, I can pull up his grades. But his strengths, Terrence is very vocal. He advocates for himself. He always asks questions or assistance if he doesn't understand anything. He has really great attendance. Uh, some of his weaknesses, I would say, is of course, it's his focus. So sometimes he's more concerned with assisting others rather than himself. He does like to be very helpful to other students rather than getting on task himself. And then the other weakness I would say would be his attitude, which would be the behavior piece. He does not like to be corrected. He doesn't like being redirected. um, and most of the time, it is a huge blow up. Like, I don't want to say like he doesn't yell or nothing, but he just shuts down completely, get angry, balls up the fist, start crying, and after that point, it's a no go for the rest of the day. He can't get back focused. So I have him at the end of the day. If something happened 9 o'clock that morning, it has trickled down all the way throughout the day. So that's very, very hard a lot of the time. But in science, his current grade is a 71. And that's probably due to test grades. Again, if he's not focused, if he's having a bad day, he will just put some answers down and say, I'm done. And he doesn't want you to tell him, okay, well, go back and fix this, fix this, fix this. He'll just say no or not do it. He has the ability to do it. I really do think that he has more. He's more than capable to complete the work and understand the work. It's just his behavior and his mindsets getting in the way majority of the time.
Yeah, and we see the same thing when he comes to the learning lab. He he has to be reminded to stay on task, which is one of his accommodations that we're going to keep. Um, he's concerned about what others are doing, and if he's concerned that his teammates are doing the right thing, and he'll get off task and no, you're supposed to be doing this, or you're supposed to be doing that, and so we have to redirect him to, hey, mind your own business. Let's complete your own work. Focus on what you have to do. Uh, he likes attention. Very respectful, though. You know, we haven't had any disrespectful moments, or he hasn't been disrespectful to us. But yeah, he does need to be reminded to stay on task. Ms. Mike, do you see some of those same things at home?
Well, he has siblings, so they have the normal sibling rivalry thing, trying to tell each other what to do. He has an older sister and a younger sister. The biggest thing is that thumb that he sucks. But the shutting down, I don't see it. Or the balling up the fist. Definitely not.
Mhm.
But we will talk with him about those things and let him express and tell us what's going on and what causes those things. More
Okay.
so when he gets, I guess, anxious or anything, he will suck his thumb.
Okay. Yeah, we've seen a lot of that too. We're trying to help him break from sucking the thumb.
Yeah, and
Um,
he does not care. So we're trying.
yes, yes. Ms. Russo, his math teacher, said that he sometimes he comes to class with no pencil and he has an attitude. So we would like for, if you could, make sure he has several pencils so that he can be prepared for class. And according to his reading teacher, Terrence wants to be heard and he will not stop when he's in that mood. But when he is working, he will try to complete the work. He wants to read aloud, but sometimes he does need assistance with words, and we also want him to improve his reading fluency, which is the speed at which he reads. So we do want to be mindful of those things. Um,
I,
his
I was like the
Go ahead.
pencil. I found
Mhm.
out he likes to give his pencils to others because he wants
Mm,
to make sure that they have their pencil. So
mhm, mhm,
again, go back to that. He take care of everybody else but himself.
mhm. Concerned about his peers. So if we could just make sure he has plenty of pencils to write with and to be prepared for class, that'll be a big help. Did you have any questions or any comments at this point, Ms. Mike?
I was just gonna say we have a whole closet full of school supplies. He could take a basket of pencils, highlighters, markers,
Oh,
whatever
wow.
he needs. But I'll make sure in the mornings I'll check to make sure he has an adequate amount of pencils and
Okay.
make sure we count them and he returns with them.
Okay. Ms. Turner, I know you had got bumped off. Did you want to resume where you left off?
Yes, and I took good notes. So I'm not sure what you all heard last, but just to summarize, because I was talking without realizing that it was when I stopped to ask Ms. Walker for input that I realized I was not on the call anymore.
Okay.
I'll just summarize for the sake of time. Um, so reviewing the previous evaluation, again, it's consistent with what everyone has reported to be concerns for Terrence. Parent and teacher rating scales suggest that he does have difficulty with concentration and attention, difficulty with hyperactivity. Um, and so those pattern of behaviors is consistent with a diagnosis of ADHD. And there was an other health impairment disability report completed by his physician. And that physician determined that he has ADD, hyperactivity, um, and emotional behavioral concerns. And due to these diagnoses, he does have a need for special education services under this area of eligibility. And so there's not a need to do any additional testing in this area because the current information being reported by his classroom teachers and his special education teacher is that he does still struggle in these areas and continues to need support. So we are not going to recommend any new testing in this area, in the area of behavior. I am going to revisit because he's eligible for services as a student with the other health impairment. Now, when he was evaluated 3 years ago, the eligibility criteria for a specific learning disability changed. He technically didn't meet eligibility for a learning disability, but did meet criteria for dyslexia. The cognitive testing showed, let's see, let me go back to the report. Um, I'm having some computer issues. Seems like when my page refreshes, I'm also getting kicked out of the meeting. Um, but he had several strengths, but that he also had some cognitive weaknesses, but these weaknesses um were not. Am I getting kicked out of the meeting again? I'm not allowed to look at the PDF because I'm telling you, when I look at that PDF and it goes black, I
No,
get
you're
kicked
still
out of the
here.
other. You still okay? I'm still here. So he had a pattern of strengths and weaknesses, but out of the 7 areas, he had too many weaknesses, and so it's technically not considered to be a learning disability, but that the child's learning difficulties are expected. And it's hard to explain, and it's always been a challenge to explain, because this is a child that if they have several weaknesses associated with learning, it sounds like they are going to need more support. But by the eligibility definition, having too many weaknesses means that your learning difficulties are expected and not a specific learning disability. But he met criteria for being a student with dyslexia because of his weakness with processing speed, because of his weakness with auditory processing. So he met the eligibility criteria for dyslexia. Now, Texas has caught up with the rest of the country, where dyslexia has always been a learning disability. And so Mr. Ballard and Ms. Deckard, when I finalized the evaluation review, if mom is in agreement, he's going to be a student with the other health impairment due to ADHD, but because he is a student with dyslexia, that means he has a specific learning disability in the area of basic reading and reading fluency, because the law changed. I think that was at the end of last school year in June 2023. So as we're coming across evaluations like this, we're making necessary updates to the student's eligibility. But I'm not going to recommend any additional testing because we don't expect his cognitive profile to change. And also, mom, from my experience, most times students that have a lot of cognitive weaknesses that show up on testing, when they have ADHD, their behavior, their difficulties with attention really impacts their performance. And so that's why and ADHD is associated with learning problems. And so again, there's not a need to do any additional testing in the area of cognition. In terms of achievement, the achievement data again suggested that he is a student with dyslexia because of his difficulty with reading. His testing data also showed that for math, his performance fell in the low average range. So in comparison to reading, it was a relative strength of his. His standard score was an 87, and we actually look for the standard score to be at least a 90 to be considered average or grade level. And so he was just shy of falling in the average range. His score was instead a low average score. So again, math was a relative strength for him when he was in second grade. Current assessment, school assessment data suggests that his math beginning of the year performance for math was in the 5th percentile. For reading, it was in the 5th percentile. And for science, it was in the 1st percentile. His STAR performance in 3rd grade for reading, he met state standards by approaching grade level expectations, but for math, he did not meet grade level expectations. For grade 4, he did demonstrate difficulty meeting state standards on STAR reading and math. Again, he did not meet standards. His report card grades show, let's see. Give me just a moment. I'll get back to his report card grades. It seemed like I gotten, okay, here we go. So his report card grade for first quarter, he had an 83 in social studies, an 81 in PE, 89 in math, 100 in reading, a 97 in ELA, and an 89 in science. Mr. Ballard, I'm going to ask you if it's safe to say that his first quarter grades are a reflection of his ability, his skills, but also considering the support that he receives with special education when it comes to grading, when it comes to the classroom accommodations that he receives. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
Okay, because his grades, he has good grades, but when we look at the benchmark data, it suggests that he is a student with dyslexia and a student whose ADHD is impacting his academic progress. And so, Ms. Mike, this information tells us that, or it tells me that we don't need to do any additional testing to figure out where he is with reading, writing, and math skills. Again, teacher observations and the school data I just reviewed tells us where he is and what supports that he'll need. And so it is my recommendation that we continue his eligibility for special education services without new testing. And if we're in agreement with my recommendation, we're essentially saying yes to the following four statements. We're saying no to the following four statements. We're saying no additional testing data is needed to determine whether Terrence is a student with a disability. ADHD doesn't go away, dyslexia doesn't go away. No, additional testing data are needed to determine whether Terrence continues to need special education services. No additional testing data are needed to determine his present levels of academic achievement. Again, we have the important school data that I've just reviewed. And lastly, no additional testing data are needed to determine what additions or modifications to his IEP and related services need to be made, which means Mr. Ballard and the rest of the committee, we have enough data to review and consider to move into the annual ARD and to make the necessary changes to his services. Is the committee in agreement to no new testing at this time?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Mike, are you in agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So since we're in agreement to no new testing at this time, his most recent reevaluation is today, November 30th, 2023. He is not going to be due for a new evaluation until November 29th of 2026 when he's in the 8th grade. And mom, you can even though he's not due for another 3 years for a reevaluation, you or any other member of the R committee can request additional testing. Sometimes you might want a new evaluation because you think there's a different disability, or maybe you think Terrence no longer requires special education services. That would be a good time to request a new evaluation sooner than the 3-year reeval date.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Ballard, that would conclude
Okay.
the read portion of our meeting.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Turner. Next, we'll let Ms. V kind of give some present levels on how Terrence is doing with the dyslexia services, like his struggles, his strengths, and whatever else Ms. V feels that he needs to help him progress with dyslexia. Ms. V?
So I'm Miss V. I've been with Terrence for the beginning of the school year, helping him with dyslexia. In the beginning, I would typically go into his classroom to help him in science and social studies class. But lately, I have pulled him into a small group where we work on letter sounds, breaking down words, and just like reading passages that they're going to read in class, pre-reading them. So some of Terrence's strengths is basically he loves to help. He does love to answer the questions when I'm calling on him to answer questions, or when I'm asking for someone to read. He loves being called on. So he loves to be involved. But like Miss Myers said, if you have to redirect him, then he completely shuts down, and then he kind of has a little attitude with you. So the struggles that he's having struggles with letter sounds, breaking down words, and remembering what he has read. So that's something that I'm really focusing on with him. And mom, do you mind if I send like homework home for him?
Please do, because we do homework, and like I said, the 7-year-old, she's very fluent in reading, so he likes to
Mm-hmm.
show her how to do things. We buy books, we do different things. So whatever you guys suggest that we can do a little bit more of or work with him on, most definitely,
Okay, because I
we
sent
welcome
some.
it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I sent some homework home with him, but he never returned it.
Okay. Because when I ask and I say, okay, let me see your backpack and your folder. Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
homework? Oh, I did it in class, because I look at Remind, I'll go on Skyward, I'll look at everything, and I'm like, well, what's going on with this or that? Like he'll tell
Okay.
me, oh, we did math today in class, or we already took care of it. I don't have anything to do today.
Okay.
So if you guys see that he's not turning something in and you gave it to him, please let me know.
Okay. That's all for me, Mr. Ballard.
Thank you, Ms. V.
You're welcome.
So I know Ms. Turner talked about some of his assessments. I just want to make sure that you're clear on especially the MAP testing, which is MAP, which is a measurement of academic progress. So this report is actually a summary of how Terrence does academically, and it's a test that adapts his responses in real time to measure his skill level. So this is taken 3 times a year, at the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And so just to kind of put things in perspective, as Ms. Turner went over earlier, his overall score from math was 184, and that's on a range from 100 to 350. And so he fell in the 5th percentile, which means that he performed better than 5% of his peers. And so for the reading, he was a 177, and that was on a scale from 100 to 320. And he was also in the 5th percentile for reading, which means he scored better than 5% of his peers. And science was 173 on a scale on a range of from 100 to 350, and he was in the 1st percentile. So which means he performed better than 1% of his peers. So he does come up for science as well, for help in science, because, we do want to help focus on his reading fluency and his comprehension. So I just kind of wanted to revisit that, Ms. Mike, in case you have any questions or comments. So at this point, and I know it's a lot of information, you will get a copy of everything. Did you have any questions before I proceed?
Oh, no, sir. Thank you. You broke down the range to me and let me know when the next set of testing will be is like in the middle of the year. So that
Okay.
works for me.
Okay.
I'm assuming that you all, his map goals are based off of him particularly. We're not expecting from him to go from 184 to a 300, but
Yeah.
the expectation is there and set.
Yes, ma'am. And it's really a measurement of his growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So there may be some themes that's on the beginning of the year map test that they haven't covered, but by the middle of the year they will have covered that, and hopefully he will know that whatever it is that was not covered but that's covered at the middle of the year, he will have learned it by then, so that'll help his score as well. So usually scores improve from the beginning to the end of the year, so we are expecting him to make some progress. We do know that Terrence is not on any kind of behavior plan, and we do know that he does not exhibit any physical limitations that would prevent him from participating in, for example, PE class. Is that correct, Ms. Mike? No physical limitations.
Correct.
Okay. And we know that he does not need assistive technology. He's able to access technology that he is given in the classroom. I'm just going to go over his goals next. So he does have goals for math, reading, and writing. So his math goal is in 36 instructional weeks, when given a multi-step word problem that involves addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, Terrence will be able to solve the problems with instructional support and accommodations with at least 70% accuracy. Is the committee okay with that math goal? I need a yes or a thumbs up from everyone, please.
Can we add science goals?
Yes, we can. For the reading goal, we have that by the end of 36 instructional weeks, when given a reading passage, Terrence will monitor his comprehension and make adjustments as needed, which includes rereading, using background knowledge, checking for visual cues, and asking questions when his understanding breaks down. And we want him to do that with at least 80% accuracy. Is the committee okay with that goal? Writing goal. In 36 instructional weeks with accommodations and instructional support, Terrence will be able to write and complete sentences with capitalization and punctuation with at least 75% accuracy. And reading in 36 instructional weeks. Did I already do reading? Well, his other goal for reading is that in 36 instructional weeks with instructional support, Terrence will be able to sound out words, break down syllables, and read with fluency at least half of the time. And so is the committee okay with those goals? And Ms. Mike, are you okay with those goals?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Myers, I know you said you wanted a science goal. What, and you can help me craft his goal, what does he need to work on in science? Ms. Myers, you there? Okay, I will come back to Ms. Myers. Looks like she stepped away.
I'm here.
Sorry, her computer.
Yeah. My goals kind of go as the same for reading because the expectation is pretty much the same. Comprehending vocabulary and what is the other one? Comprehension,
Comprehension, vocabulary, and what else?
writing.
Writing. Okay. So I will go ahead and come up with a goal right now, and committee, let me know if you think it needs to be tweaked or if it's fine. So we're going to say in 36 instructional weeks with accommodations and instructional support, Terrence will be able to comprehend science terms along with its vocabulary and will be able to write his answers in complete sentences with capitalization and punctuation as it relates to science with at least a 70% accuracy. Is that goal okay with the committee?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and add that goal to Terrence's IEP. And again, Ms. Mike, you will get a copy of everything. Did you have any questions so far before I go to accommodations?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, and I know it's a lot of information. I thank you for being patient, and we're moving right along. So his accommodations, which are basically the tools that's available to Terrence that helps him to be successful in class. We have opportunity to leave class for individualized assistance. And what that looks like is Terrence coming to the learning lab where I am, Ms. Deckard, Mr. Kelly, where we all help him with small group instruction, in addition to him taking his assessments. So he does get that. He gets reading assistance on his work at his request. We have sit near the teacher for instructional purposes. So we know we definitely need that, especially because he wears glasses. So we'll be wearing glasses. And we have breaking down assignments in chunks. So we break it down into small pieces, biteable size pieces where he can better understand what's going on. We also have for the classroom direct attention to specific information. We have math problem solving read orally to student at his request, and we have frequent feedback. Is the committee okay with those accommodations? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We are for his behavior, so we're going to give frequent breaks whenever need. He doesn't seem to need frequent breaks, but we'll keep it just in case, and positive reinforcement, which I think is good for all students. So I'm now going to talk about his STAR accommodations. He will be taking STAR online. Everything, all of his accommodations will be embedded, which means it will be in the computer, except for scratch paper, of course. So we're going to provide scratch paper as an accommodation. He gets small group administration, which means he'll be tested in a small group setting. Reminders to stay on task, and he gets text-to-speech. So the text-to-speech is embedded. And so whenever he sees fit, he'll click a button, and the computer will read the question and answer choices. It will not read the passages to him. And I'll only read the question and answer choices. Is the committee okay with those accommodations, or does anyone feel that any needs to be added or taken away? Everybody's okay with those? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So he'll get those same accommodations, Ms. Mike, when he takes his IAs, his interim assessments. He'll get those same accommodations as he will get on the STAR tests. Okay.
Mr. Ballard, was it one added for science too? Because he takes one for fifth grade.
He takes well, the accommodations that I just read can apply to science as well. Are there any additional ones that you wanted to add?
No, I just want. I know sometimes they don't have it for a science testing because they never taken it.
I will let Miss Everett know, because I know she does testing. I'll let her know to add that for science.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm making a note so I won't forget. Okay. You good, Miss Mike?
I think all of these things will assist Terrence and has been over the years. I guess the only one that I was a little curious about is the text to speech. It will read the answer choices and the question, but not the passage.
Yes.
Is I think that's y'all probably can't do anything else about that, but it's,
Yeah. And I know exactly what you're thinking. Why would it read the questions and not the passage? Am I right?
yes, sir.
We've been asking that question for ages. Yes. But yeah, it'll only read the question and answer choices. Hopefully, and I can see it, Terrence will get to a point where he won't even need that, because his reading fluency and his comprehension will improve. I can see that. So we're looking forward to him not even needing those things.
And I'm definitely in agreement. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So we're going to talk about his LRE, which is least restrictive environment alternatives. We know that Terrence's day is in proportion with that of students without disabilities. So that's why he's included in the general education classroom. That's called inclusion. He's not pulled out to be in a self-contained classroom. He's left in the classroom, and he gets push-in services from me, Ms. Decker, Mr. Kelly. So we walk into his classroom. We don't hover over him. We're just kind of there to make sure he's on task, to make sure his accommodations are being given, and make sure he's using them, and making sure he's understanding what's going on in the classroom. So that's what we mean by LRE, least restrictive environment alternatives. He is in the classroom with his general education peers who do not have disabilities. So that also helps with socialization. It also helps with teamwork, which are skills he's going to need for the future anyway. Okay. He's not removed from the general education classroom except for when he comes for individualized assistance, and unless he comes to the learning lab for assessments, exit tickets. Exit tickets are just quick assessments that teachers give at the end of the lesson to make sure that the students are knowing what was being learned that day. Any questions about that, Ms. Mike?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is schedule of services. So far we have Terrence receiving dyslexia 30 minutes 4 times a week with Ms. V. He receives in-class support, which is what those push-ins I was talking about earlier. He gets 30 minutes 1 time a week for math, 30 minutes 1 time a week for reading, 30 minutes 1 time a week for writing, and we'll go ahead and add science, 30 minutes 1 time a week. Ms. Myers, does that sound okay? 30 minutes 1 time a week for push-ins, and of course he gets more time than that when he comes to the learning lab. Is the committee okay? Is the rest of the committee okay with those service times? All righty. And Miss Mike, you're okay with those service times, and you understand how that works?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as far as ESY, which is extended school year services, that's basically summer school for students who show a serious regression And committee, let me know if uh, I'm wrong with, or if I'm mistaken, but it doesn't look like Terrence regresses so much that he would need summer school at the end of the year. So is the committee in agreement with that? Ms. Mike, are you in agreement with that, that Terrence doesn't show such a regression that he will need to come to summer school at the end of the school year?
I'm in agreement. I did have a question. I did see something where papers were going to come home about tutoring. Is he going to be able to participate in that, or he doesn't need that? I think it's
Well,
after school tutoring or something.
yes, ma'am. I know that Miss Russo, his math teacher, sent forms home. Did Terrence get one for math?
So the way that Miss Russo do it, me and it's only science and math tutoring.
Mhm.
The way that she do it, she has certain groups come on certain days. So based on his day, he'll get a permission slip. So his day probably hasn't come yet.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Myers. Okay, so Miss Mike, it looks like we are about to wrap up the meeting. Did you have any questions or comments about anything so far before we move towards a conclusion?
I do not. I guess my only question is I hear how he shuts down at times. If he was given a moment to, and I'm sure y'all probably do leave him alone, give him a moment to regroup and rethink. Um, does that seem to help at all, or
That's where
it's
that
just over?
accommodate. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just wondering if that helps at all. Um,
So that's where that accommodation of frequent breaks comes in. So we will. I going back in my mind, I don't recall myself personally giving him frequent breaks, but I'll make sure that his teachers. I will remind his teachers that that's one of his accommodations, and when they see fit, just kind of let him just for a few seconds to regroup himself when needed. So is the committee okay with like kind of with implementing that little frequent break period whenever necessary? Okay.
and thank you.
Uh,
And again, I don't
yes,
want
ma'am.
him. I don't want him to think that he can throw a temper tantrum and that's going to get him out of doing something or anything like that. But I just wanted to make sure to see if that helped at all.
When does he throw a tantrum at home? I think you said he doesn't
Uh,
really.
he doesn't. He sucks his thumb. That's
He
his
sucks his
biggest
thumb.
thing.
So
Just that.
so maybe that's his way of cooling down, or you know what I mean, like not blowing up. You think that may be a reason he does that?
And it could be. And then, at home, he has his own space too. He has his own room.
Okay.
His siblings that can, when they, have their little sibling thing, he can go away and remove himself for a little
Okay.
bit and then come back. So,
Yeah, we'll keep that in mind though. And if that doesn't work, we'll just revisit and see what other alternative we can come up with. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to also, before I continue to the assurances that'll be read by Mr. Matthews, is it okay, Ms. Mike, that I put your electronic signature on the signature page?
yes, sir.
Okay, and committee, do I have your permission as well?
Yes.
Okay, so after his art is finalized, Ms. Mike, and after I finalize his IEP, which is his individualized education plan, I will send that to you. You will also get a copy of the procedural safeguards, which explains your right as a parent of a student with a learning disability. And again, whenever you see fit to call an ARD, you can definitely do that. That's one of your rights as well. If you decide to do that before his annual ARD date, which again will be November the 29th, 2024. Okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. So at this time, Mr. Matthews, I'm going to pull up the assurances. And if you would read that, that would be great. You still with us, Mr. Matthews?
Yes, I'm here. I got you, Mr.
Okay.
Ballard.
All right. Here we go. Let's see. Touch screen. Okay, Mr. Matthews, when you are ready.
The ARD committee assures that removal of students with disabilities from the regular educational environment occurs only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. The ARD committee assures that each student with a disability participates in non-academic and extracurricular services and activities, including meals and recess periods, with non-disabled students to the maximum extent appropriate to the needs of the student. The ARD committee assures that the maximum extent appropriate students with disabilities, including students in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with students who are non-disabled.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem.
And before we go, Ms. Mike, I wanted to just kind of, let me see, just briefly review what we did. We know that we came together for Terrence's annual ARD, and he continues to qualify as a student with a health impairment, ADHD. You did say that he is currently not on any medication. We know that Ms. V, Ms. Myers shared his present levels, which also shared Ms. Russo's and the reading teacher's present levels on how he's doing in their class. I went over the math goals, reading goals, writing goals, and we're adding the science goals. We know that the technology is sufficient to meet his needs in the classroom. And I went over his accommodations. The committee agreed with the accommodations, the goals, and we talked about the map testing, STAR testing with accommodations embedded online. And we talked about the least restrictive environment, which he's included with his Gen Ed peers who do not have disabilities. And we did say that at this time, extended school year services are not needed. I went over the service times for dyslexia and his general education classes in math, reading, and science. And that concluded the meeting, and the committee agreed with everything that was discussed. So that will conclude the meeting for today. Ms. Mike, again, I will send you a copy of everything, and if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me, okay?
Yes, sir. And thank you all again. If you need Terrence for us to talk to him, you can call myself or his dad. If it comes down to homework, pencils, anything, it doesn't bother me. I check Remind throughout the day, class dojo, whatever it is. Just let us know.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your support. We really do. And so you have ours as well. And again, reach out to me if you have any questions, okay?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, committee. Everyone have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.